Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Kennedy, Trustee Chair in Chinese Business and Economics here at CSIS. For most people, this week has been about the war in the Middle East. In China, this week has been mostly about the opening of the National People's Congress, which meets every year at this time. 3,000 deputies packed into the Great Hall of the People to listen to the Premier, Li Qiang, issue the government work report, and then have a whole series of meetings over the next several days. They will review a variety of legislative proposals, look at the budget, the report of the Supreme People's Court, the Supreme People's Procuratorate, and then at the very end, they will issue the final version of China's 15th five-year plan, a draft of which they issued a couple days ago. So again, at the beginning, the big focus is on the government work report that Li Qiang presented on Wednesday. And of course, they're going to highlight the importance and success of China's high-tech drive, what Xi Jinping calls new quality productive forces. EVs are obviously a big part of that. These are BYDs, one of their SUVs that comes with a drone on the roof. Chinese technology really has changed dramatically over the last 10 to 20 years because of this emphasis. But I don't want to focus just on the positives that were in the speech. I also want to point out some of the challenges as well. So what I was most impressed about in the government work report was not the highlighting of what went well, but the problems that China faces at home and abroad. And so I've put up some text for you to see, and I'm going to read those for you. Domestically, the economy remained in the midst of a profound transformation. Deep-seated structural problems became more pronounced, and consumption and investment lacked adequate growth momentum. He goes on to say, we are also clear-eyed about the difficulties and challenges we face. The evolving external environment is exerting a greater impact on China, and geopolitical risks are rising. Global economic momentum remains sluggish, while multilateralism and free trade are under severe threat. At home, we still face quite a few problems and challenges, both old and new, in economic development and transformation. The task of transitioning to new growth drivers is formidable. The imbalance between strong supply and weak demand is acute. Market expectations are weak, and there are many risks and hidden dangers in key areas. Some enterprises are facing difficulties in their operations, and it is more challenging for people to secure employment and earn more. Some local governments are burdened by severe budgetary imbalances, and the real estate market remains in a period of adjustment. I think the word adjustment there is about as polite a word as you could say to describe China's real estate market. There are still many weak links in public services. And finally, I just want to highlight that he's not just talking about the economy, but also the government. Some policies, upon implementation, have not delivered as expected. Some officials lack the ability and solutions needed to drive high-quality development. Some officials have a misguided understanding of what it means to perform well. They lack drive, act arbitrarily, work for show, or just go through the motions in their work. Corruption still occurs frequently in some sectors and localities. I think this is a huge admission that they're making, and they're doing so because there is a lot of skepticism about China's economic performance lately and the plans they have to address those challenges going forward. And so a lot of times Communist Party speeches are just positive pomp and circumstance. And here, they're taking a significant amount of time to identify serious challenges. The question is, are they ready with policies to really fix these challenges? Now, the big headline announcement that he made in the government work report was setting a growth target of 4.5% to 5% for 2026. That's the lowest target that they've had as long as I can remember, at least 3 decades. The only year not was in 2020 when they didn't have a target. So they are recognizing that growth is going to slow down, and they're going to try and still keep it around 4.5% to 5%. But to do so is going to take some significant effort and some good luck, or an eraser on the back of a pencil that just writes in any old number because that's what they want it to be. And so how should we interpret the strategy that Li Qiang outlined in his speech, and that's in the government work report, and that we also find in the initial draft of the 15th five-year plan? I think there's two ways. One is it's a refinement of what they have been doing the last few years, and the stability in policy, the predictability in policy should be seen as strengths. But I think another way to look at this is that this is just copy-paste of the strategy that they have been using without putting a lot of deep thought into it or considering better policies that might actually address these problems, and that will feel to many like stubbornness. I think you could go either way, and that's really what the debate is going to be in the coming weeks and months. Is this a refinement of a policy that is essentially working and needs to be improved, or are they doubling down on policies which are really leading to growth not getting to where it really could be if they had better policies? Let's look at a few numbers here. China's growth has depended a lot lately on exports. This is China's trade surplus as a percentage of GDP the last few years. And as you can see, coming out of the pandemic, they've depended more and more on exports for growth. You can look at it another way as the various components of growth, and you can see that exports are quite significant to growth, 30%. Now, a lot comes from other components as well, consumption and investment, but exports really are significant. And of course, these are Chinese official numbers on the economy, and what we're expecting and what they're depending on is exports to continue to be important. But the split screen of the world suggests that that is going to be a challenge. One is Chinese exports are already super high, and a lot of countries are imposing a variety of restrictions and pressing the Chinese to have a more balanced relationship with them. But the other big challenge is that we've got a lot of international crises and challenges, most recently this week. The war in the Middle East is most directly going to affect oil prices and energy, but it could also affect a lot of other parts of countries' economies and their ability to consume. If there's an energy inflation, they're not going to be able to absorb as many Chinese imports as they have. This is probably as big a factor in what will happen for China's economy as just about anything. China keeps saying that they want to raise consumption as a share of the economy, domestic demand. Well, they've had some success, but you can see that over the last few years, despite emphasizing the importance of consumption, it's remained flat as a share of GDP growth. The new strategy that Li Qiang outlined in his work report has some modest new policies to encourage consumption, but nothing dramatically new. If you look at the share of the economy that is accounted for by services, industry, and agriculture, a lot of folks think that really you need to radically expand the share of services in the economy to encourage faster growth, greater employment. And that number has been shifting gradually over time, but it's still nowhere near where it needs to be. One of the big challenges for 2026 is that based on the government work report and the budget report that the Ministry of Finance issued, China is not going to have a large stimulus to push growth this year. It's going to be somewhere around negative 4% of GDP for just the central government. And so that is going to make it hard to get growth any higher. So you're going to have constraints on exports because of external issues. Also, the renminbi is getting a little bit stronger. It's now at around 6.9 to the dollar. And then you've got not a lot of stimulus domestically. So 2026 is probably going to be a year more of retrenchment, trying to deal with debts in real estate and other things, as opposed to promoting short-term growth. If you look at employment in China, you can still see that, again, there's been progress in services as a share of employment, but it needs to go a lot further. The other part of the plan of this week that I wanted to mention is the draft of the new 15th five-year plan that was circulated to deputies of the National People's Congress on Wednesday. They're discussing it in smaller groups, and there will be an official version passed and promoted in a few weeks. It's quite possible this draft will not end up being the exact version of what they officially adopt. There's usually some tweaks to some of the targets, some of the language, as a result of the meetings. But this is probably pretty close to what they will actually implement. So the part I want to just focus on right now has to do with technology and innovation. And so here are the targets that they set for the 13th five-year plan and the 14th five-year plan. So 13th five-year plan ran from 2016 to 2020, and the 14th five-year plan ran from 2021 just to the beginning of this year. And you can see the type of targets that they set regarding R&D spending, as well as patents, etc. The targets for the new 15th five-year plan are a little bit different, and they deserve some attention. The first, again, they're R&D spending. Yes, they want to increase R&D spending, but they're not specifically saying what percent of GDP they want R&D spending to be. Instead, they say they want R&D spending to grow at 7% per year. Well, if they're going to achieve growth of around 5% per year, they don't specifically say so, but if you just start with that assumption, that by 2030, that would mean that R&D spending would be about 3.1% of GDP. They'll probably come in a little bit lower, and if they spend that much on R&D, then it'll be 3.2 or 3.3%. And that would be at the right in the middle of the OECD average. One statistic and target that is identical to the 14th five-year plan is high-quality invention patents per 10,000 residents in China, which is now at 16, and they want to increase that dramatically to 22 per 10,000 residents by 2030. That is going to mean a lot more IP filed in China. Now, will that translate into greater revenue and licensing royalties and China moving up the value-added chain? That's what they want, but that's still an open question. The last statistic and target that they've set for technology in the plan is to make the digital economy's share of value-added rise from 10.5% to 12.5%. That's another 20% increase or so. That's going to require significant investment and success of those industries. And that's still going to be a challenge to translate that growth in tech to faster growth for the economy overall, because tech still does not occupy a very large share of the economy overall. Compared to infrastructure, traditional industries, it's still much smaller. In addition, you still have to be concerned about over-success, over-capacity, involution. China produced 13.1 million EVs. They are going to be able to produce more. Will they be actually purchased and used, or will there be way too much inventory sitting around, not just in EVs, but in other industries? And so at the end of the day, these targets really help push greater production of high-tech products. But will that translate into faster growth? It's really hard to say. Right now, I think there's good reason to be skeptical that China's growth is going to ramp up radically because of this strategy. I think it's going to not necessarily drop dramatically, but this is going to be, as I've said in other places, a slow tech dragon. And I think by 2030, China will still be a slow tech dragon. For more on China's economic policies, their focus on high tech, I encourage you to go look at the report that I just recently published, The Power of Innovation, as well as a report that CSIS's Economic Security and Technology Department issued in January, of which I was a contributor, called Tech Edge, which looks in detail at the comparison between U.S. and Chinese tech ecosystems. And both of them have a whole variety of policy suggestions for the United States and how to respond to China's innovation drive. Thanks so much.